When I was at Columbia Law School, I think I mentioned Herman Taylor was there, a black young man. One of his 3 jobs was clerking for Thurgood Marshall. So when he got ready to graduate, he said to me, "Don't you want this job that I have with Thurgood Marshall? Because I'm leaving, you know." I said, "Oh, yes." He said, "Well, go on down, you know, and see him," which I did. And of course, that's how I got the job, as a clerk, going to school, my last year. And of course, when I graduated, we filed the sweat case that same year, 1946. And so I just, just went along with the tide as it was then.
But tell me, what was he? What kind of impression did he make on you when you first met him? I mean, what kind of person was he?
Well, he's a very complex person, I suppose, as we all are. But he was the organization, let's put it that way. At that time, the NAACP and the Legal Defense Fund were one and the same. And then in 1956, as a part of the Southern massive resistance to our efforts, the Southerners got the Internal Revenue Service to threaten to pull the tax exemption of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund because they were engaged in legislative activity as well as legal. So the 2 organizations had to separate. And as I say, I think that was about 56 or 58, something like that. And Thurgood became the head of the legal effort. And I think Bob Carter then, who was his first assistant, became the head of the NAACP's separate legal program, which it had with the branches. And that's how the 2 organizations proceeded from then on.
And he was very much a mentor to you?
Oh, yes. Well, he would allow us to go whenever he argued a case in the Supreme Court. And the first one was in 1947, right after I got out of law school, when he and Charles Houston argued the restrictive covenant cases decided by the Supreme Court the next year in 1948. And after that, it was just this whole series of cases. And we would go down with him like 2 days before the argument, get set up. And this black hotel where we had to stay was a rooming house. And the night before the argument in the Supreme Court, he would appear before the faculty at Howard Law School and the students. And the faculty acted as a court, asked him the hardest questions they could think of, so that he would be prepared the next day for his argument in the Supreme Court. And that was very instructive, not only for him, but for the students who were allowed to come in and watch this. It was history being made. They didn't realize it, I guess, but there it was. He never argued a case in the Supreme Court that he didn't rehearse the night before the Howard faculty. And of course, he had gone to Howard Law School, and Houston was his main mentor, and then Houston's cousin, Hasty. They would, help him with these arguments. And
you say he was a very complex person, but when you initially met him and you started working with him, was he intimidating at all to you? I mean, were you sort of like a little overwhelmed by him?
No, he was a very relaxed person, and anybody could approach him. He wasn't hard to approach at all, and he was always very relaxed, always had a joke to tell you, that kind of thing. And he was always interested in people's personal problems, whether he could do anything to help them and so forth. And of course, he had one brother who was a doctor. His mother was a school teacher. His father had been a railroad dining car chef, I think, something like that. So Thurgood knew how to cook. He learned that from his father. And he used to have us come over to his apartment in Harlem. And he'd cook something, you know, a stew of some kind or something like that. And we'd come to his staff. We weren't very big then. There was Ed Dudley, who was his first assistant, Bob Carter, and I was the law clerk, and then Franklin Williams and Marion Perry were hired, and then Jack Greenberg was hired, and yeah, well, I guess that was
And
about it.
you'd all go over and have
Yeah, he would.
stew at
Yeah, he'd
Thurgood's
make
place.
something. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
he knew how to cook. Yeah, he was pretty good too. Yeah, he would make something. We'd all just sit around and talk. You know, one joke after the other.
Now, you as you just outlined it again, you're the only woman on that team.
Yes, except for Marion Perry, who was there for a couple of years.
Did it make
She
any
was a
difference?
white woman, and she was there for a couple of years. She married a doctor who moved to Washington, so she left. But then I was the only woman, yes.
Did it make any difference? Your being the only
No,
woman?
no, Thurgood didn't bother him at all. And the reason I think so, his mother was a professional. His mother was a school teacher. So the idea of a woman being, you know, in a professional job, he didn't see anything wrong. In fact, there were women in his class at law school. I have a picture of his first year of his class when he was in. There were several women in his class. So he didn't think anything strange of a woman being a lawyer.